All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to our special year-end edition of Big Bang Wrestling. I'm your host, Marcus.
And I'm Nick.
And first thing I want to hit off with is, this week is actually just within a day of each other. Two great guys were lost from the wrestling world, and Danny Hodge and John Huber, who is also known as Luke Harper or Brodie Lee.
Yep.
Danny Hodge, he died at 88 years old from, as far as we know, natural causes.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything on his cause of death so far. It's just said that, he was 88 years old. So,
and I know you know a little bit more about Danny Hodge than I do. So you want to tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, Danny Hodge, he's pretty much the guy responsible for getting the smaller guys, the light heavyweights, cruiserweights, getting them into pro wrestling, really getting them taken serious. Yeah, because he was a smaller guy himself, but he was a serious competitor. His collegiate wrestling record, he was 46-0. He was a legitimate athlete. He was a legitimate wrestler. And so he was the one that really made those guys be taken serious. And he's also the reason, that Jim Ross got into wrestling.
Yeah, that's what I heard, that Jim Ross put out a huge statement on him yesterday on Twitter.
Yeah. That was his favorite wrestler growing up. That was the guy that got him into it. Even at 80 years old, Danny Hodge was still crushing apples in one hand. So, I mean, the guy was legit. Yeah, he was legit, So he was definitely a pioneer.
Yeah, definitely, and also, like I said, we lost Brodie Lee. He was 41 years old, and people on social media have been trying to say it was COVID. It wasn't COVID. His wife even said it was non-COVID related lung issues.
Yeah.
For the reason that he passed away.
Yeah, they haven't given the exact reason, and I don't expect them to anytime soon. No. But that was the first thing they said, was it was non-COVID related. If you saw that statement, I think that was like the first sentence in there.
Yeah, and AEW, they issued a statement. WWE, Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, all of them issued statements in regards to Brodie Lee passing away.
Yeah,
and Brodie's wife has also, talked about how AEW, as an organization, has been helping them out too since all this has happened.
Yeah, she said they'd been, pretty much been taking care of them since, all this has been going on.
Yeah.
Which is not something you see a lot in wrestling, to be honest, but that's a good thing. But, from everything I've seen, everything I've heard, he was a very well-respected guy, in the business. And, I was always a fan of him, not necessarily his more recent stuff, not so much a fan, but as a whole, I always was a fan of the guy.
Yeah, definitely. He's also won multiple titles in his career. Yeah, he's won numerous titles on the independent scene, and he was a former NXT Tag Team Champion, WWE Tag Team Champion, SmackDown Tag Team Champion, Intercontinental Champion, and then when he went to AEW, he won the TNT title from Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
And actually, his last televised match was the dog collar match, where he
lost the title. Yeah.
Yeah, he lost the title back to Cody Rhodes. So he's had a good career, since he started in WWE with the Wyatt family, all the way to, he was the leader of the Dark Order on AEW.
And, he was recently out with an injury, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's what I heard. He was out with an injury. Rest in peace to both of those guys,
Yeah.
They will surely...
Two well-loved, respected guys.
Yeah, they surely will be missed in the wrestling world. Yeah, but I want to kick off this episode, with some of the outside the ring news. Starting from TLC, right? Let's give our reactions to TLC too. First thing I want to hit on was, at TLC, saw Hurt Business. They won the tag title. MVP also won a championship.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he was in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament where he actually won a world championship the day before TLC.
Yep, he won his division in that competition the day before. So
WWE has also been planning an expansion of their NXT brand into Mexico.
yep. Yeah, and there's been a lot of talks of that stuff going on lately, not just with Mexico, but with India, Japan, and places like that. They've already established the UK branch has been there for a few years now, and they were responsible for one of the best matches this year, Walter and Ilya Dragunov. So hopefully, if these other places do get going, they can produce similar content.
Yeah, definitely. But one of the guys they are talking to and kind of being in charge of production of that is Chavo Guerrero Jr. He was a great wrestler during his time, so I think if him being in charge of that, I think he'll do pretty good.
Well, he's done a lot of behind the scenes work for other companies. He was a big help in Lucha Underground on American television. He was a big help with that. Yeah. He was really big part of Glow, the revival of Glow. He was big hand in that. He trained a lot of those women,
Yeah, he also participated some with the behind the scenes stuff of CMLL, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Guerreros had been, CMLL, AAA. They'd always been involved in those bigger companies, so he's very, very familiar with with that role that they would want him to be in.
And they're talking about WWE is talking about sending some of their bigger main roster guys down to Mexico to help. With some of the names they mentioned are Rey Mysterio, Andrade, Angel Garza. They've been talking about the whole Legado del Fantasma, sending them all down there to help kickstart this promotion. And it's supposed to be like a similar style that Lucha Underground was.
Well, that ought to be interesting, especially having Chavo. That if that's the style they're going for, that's what he did for those years. So that would help.
So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this thing starts and how it turns out, within a year.
Well, and there's a lot of good guys down there in CMLL and AAA, the two major companies. So there's definitely a good talent pool that they can work with. So we'll see how that goes. That ought to be interesting. But the only drawback to all this that I see is that that's just a lot of extra content on top of everything that WWE already does, plus the fact that they've started adding independent shows to the network.
Yeah, I saw that when I was going to watch TLC pay-per-view. I was looking at all the extra content they had, and it's like, where did all this come from?
Yeah, they have a whole section on there dedicated to independents now.
They're just taking over everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hell, they tried to buy Japan, so
yeah. That's been some good news from WWE this week. They also kind of been under fire this week from the USA Network in regards to their low ratings.
Yeah, USA said that they wanted more adult-oriented content. However, they wish what that to mean or to go,
that can be taken many different ways, but one thing we'll never see again, no matter what happens, we'll never see another Attitude Era.
No, and we don't need to.
But they need to please that top demo, which is what, 18 to, was it 40?
It's 40 or 45.
Something like that.
That's your main. I mean, the goal is to find an audience everywhere, but obviously you're going to have your key demos, your main,
Dave Meltzer's key demo.
That. Yeah. Except this ain't Wednesday nights.
I also understand you had some news that came out of New Japan this week in regards to Juice Robinson.
Yeah, he suffered a broken orbital bone, and I believe it was the December 22nd Road to Tokyo Dome show. Didn't really see what happened, but just New Japan's pretty good about covering up injuries, not showing injuries on their, on their broadcast. But he was originally supposed to face Kenta for the right to challenge on the U.S. title. But since that happened, he's now been replaced by Satoshi Kojima. He's a legitimate, Japanese legend. The guy is, he's been around for a while and he's been a part of some big things, and he's got a few firsts in wrestling under his belt too.
Yeah. So this guy's a pretty big deal, and I think it's still going to be a good match between those two, even though Juice Robinson got replaced.
Yeah, it should. Kenta is the type of guy that can pretty much have a decent match with anyone. I know anybody that's, watched, seen him as Hideo Itami in WWE, even though he wasn't really used the best.
Not at all.
No, he still put on good matches, though, when he was allowed.
Yeah, but they never used him anywhere even close to his full potential.
No. But that should be, even though I was excited for the Juice and Kenta match because their styles are so different, they mesh well, it should still be a good match with Kojima and Kenta.
Yeah, definitely. We also want to give our TLC reactions this week. Overall, I thought TLC was probably one of the better pay-per-views of the year.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
It opened up with Drew McIntyre and AJ Styles for the WWE title, and what was a very good, packed back and forth match. And we even saw The Miz attempt to cash in his Money in the Bank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was kind of surprised that match went on first.
Me too.
Me personally, to what I like, I felt that was the best match of the night. Even with the cash in being in it, I wasn't too crazy with how they did the cash in. I feel like that should have been after the match. You go through this big crazy car crash of a match, and then you're spent, and then this guy comes at. Me personally, I think that's what they should have done, but it wasn't bad. No,
they like you said, they should have had him wait till after the match.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it did also make Almost look strong, too. When Morrison hit him in the back of that chair, and the chair just friggin' shattered.
Yeah, they're finally starting to do something with Omos. He's actually has a purpose, or starting to have a purpose, instead of just standing there and being tall.
Yeah, he's slowly working his way into the picture.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see where that goes, because that could be fun.
We also saw the Hurt Business. They finally won the tag team titles from the New Day, and what was a really good match. I was actually surprised that there wasn't anything goofy in this match. Especially coming from the New Day.
Yeah, they did. They allowed the New Day to be serious and wrestle, because they can wrestle. And, those four guys, there's no reason in the world that those four guys shouldn't have a good match at any point in time ever.
No, not at all. And as we saw with their matches against the Usos, we know that they're capable of good matches, So when this match came up, I was actually excited for it, but then kind of worried because of the goofiness from the New Day.
Yeah. Yeah, especially the way they've been handled lately.
Yeah, but, now seeing that they did put on a great match, and seeing that Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin finally got the tag titles.
Yeah.
It was good. It was different. New faces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, that's a good combination, Shelton and Cedric. Yes, I'm excited to see if they treat that serious. They don't screw that up,
We saw Charlotte Flair. She made her return to win the women's tag titles with Asuka from Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax.
Yeah.
Now we know the rumors coming up to TLC was going to be that Charlotte returns to be Asuka's partner, and that ended up being true.
I mean, we pretty much kind of knew by the end that that's what was going to happen. So
my question is about Charlotte is, where does it go from here?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, because wasn't her and Asuka like feuding or something, or
one time they were, but
or had been feuding not too long before she left and all that.
I don't think it was anything major. Nothing. That WrestleMania rivalry,
right? That might have been what I was thinking of.
We saw Kevin Owens. Him and Roman Reigns, had a TLC match for the Universal title. And that was a great back and forth match, and. Even though Kevin Owens lost, it made both Roman Reigns and KO look very strong.
Now, I didn't like that one as much as the Styles and McIntyre match, because the Styles and McIntyre match, I feel, had more and more wrestling and less of the car crash stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing. I didn't dislike Reigns and Owens at all. I just preferred the other one because it was just the style of the match,
Right.
But it definitely wasn't bad by no means.
Right after that match, they announced that on SmackDown there's going to be a steel cage match between Owens and Reigns for the Universal title.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous to just keep throwing stipulation matches on top of each other like that, but
we'll get to that when we cover SmackDown. But there wasn't really a whole lot from TLC that stood out, except for those matches. Then we saw Bray Wyatt, the Fiend. Yeah. He got cremated on live TV.
Yeah, and we will talk about that when we get to the year end in depth, because no.
I mean, it was a decent match. Just the ending of it kind of really threw me off a bit.
And
that's how they ended the show.
Coughing on roller skates. We'll get there.
And that's how they ended the show with Randy Orton committing murder on live TV.
Yeah, Randy Orton wins by murder.
We go to Raw this week. Not a whole lot really happened. Nothing major. Nothing really stood out. It wasn't a bad show, but it wasn't their best. It was enough to keep me interested. One thing I saw that I liked was the tensions coming up between Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, and Keith Lee.
Right.
There's tensions is starting to flare up between the three of them again, and I think they're getting ready to start pushing Keith Lee for a major singles push.
Right. We'll see. I mean, because what they got that whole that whole performance center thing going on right now with him and Omos and a few of the others. So that could be setting them up for something else. I
know the rumor that I've been hearing is that Keith Lee's going to win the Rumble, turn heel. He's going to join the Hurt Business and then go on to beat Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania for the title. But we'll see if there's any truth to that at all. I'm excited to see if that happens. I hope it does because Keith Lee deserves it.
Yeah, well, he does, but I also feel like McIntyre has a lot of time in him and a lot more he can do as champion before they give it to somebody else,
Well, he got 3 months to get 3 or 4 months to get it done. He needs to go on and do it.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it ain't his call either. So
yeah, NXT, nothing really major. Nothing really stood out to me. Wasn't able to catch Impact. Did you see anything that?
I mean, the other shows this week wasn't really anything special. It was just another show. It
was kind of a quiet week.
Yeah, what I was going to say is just right here at the end of the year, they're not doing anything major yet.
Yeah. SmackDown, they had a few significant changes and matches and whatnot. We saw Charlotte and Asuka. They defended their tag titles in a triple threat tag match against the teams of Sasha and Bianca and Bayley and Carmella. Well, that was a pretty decent match between all of them, back and forth. Now, we saw Roman Reigns. He retained his title with the help of Jey Uso against Kevin Owens in a steel cage match. There was actually, right there at the end of the match, Owens was like cuffed to the cage to where he really couldn't get out.
Yeah.
And Reigns just got up, walked out the cage, started walking down the steps. He stood at that bottom step for a minute. And Kevin Owens was basically like, if you walk out, you're a bitch. Reigns kind of laughed, walked on out, kept his title. Then we saw a lumberjack match between Sami Zayn and Big E for the Intercontinental title, where we actually saw Big E win his second Intercontinental title since he's been in WWE. And
that's
first major title in 6 or 7 years?
That's his first singles title since the New Day started that I can think of.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
He was Intercontinental Champion. He was Intercontinental Champion when he was Dolph Ziggler's bodyguard. That was 2013, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Like I said, not a whole lot really happened this week. Did anything really major happen on Ring of Honor besides that Pure Rules match between Rhett Titus and Delirious?
that's about it, really. That pure title, that pure rules match, excuse me. That was a good match. It was a good solid 15-minute match. It was a good way to end a wrestling show. Anybody that would have ended with that kind of match would have been happy. But yeah, that's about it. Nothing major happened there. They're just continuing the stories they've already had in place, but no major turning points or anything like that.
Right. Well, with all that being said, then we can go on and get started with our year-end review of
Yeah, man.
really that's been what's been a major what the fuck type of year, with COVID
Yeah, a
and
lot of shit
else is going on.
Oh, a lot of shit going on there.
Yeah, definitely. First thing I want to ask you about is the show pay-per-view of the year. What's your take on that? In your opinion, what was the best show or pay-per-view of the year?
Well, for me, it was Ring of Honor Final Battle. To me, that was the best pay-per-view of the year. It was the best show. So everything on that show had a purpose. Even the one goofy match, it still had a stipulation that made sense, even if the wrestler involved didn't.
Danhausen.
Yeah, but the presentation looks professional. It's legit. The commentary is great. And Ring of Honor has really been on a very big roll since they came back from their reboot and restarted and just overhauled everything. And in my opinion, Final Battle was just the culmination of all that coming together. And, it was a 4-hour show, but it didn't feel like it.
Not at all. No, the flow of the show was just really good. There wasn't a whole lot of backstage talking. There wasn't a lot of downtime. It was just like one or two matches. They have a little segment or whatever. Then it continued on into matches.
Yep. Usually the stuff they're showing between the matches was just the pre-match segment, the pre-match interview.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that was your first Ring of Honor pay-per-view, was it not?
Yeah, it was. And like I said, I was extremely impressed with it, and I look forward to seeing more of them. For me, my pick of the best pay-per-view I thought was this year was actually the TLC match. Like I said, WWE took a big hit with the COVID and everything else. They set up the Thunderdome. They got the crowds and everything with the computers now. They got the automated crowd noise. That helped out a lot. And they've been that show, they allowed the wrestlers time to actually put on good matches, and the stories going into that match are fairly well developed. And like I said, I thought it was just a great show overall. I didn't think there was many bad matches at all.
Again, save for that last one, and we'll get to that in a minute. Like I said, there wasn't anything on that show that, to me, that was just stood out as, oh, that's terrible or anything like that. It was a solid show.
Yeah.
Even if it did get a little egregious with the, all the stipulations and everything, that gets a little overboard sometimes. But overall, it was a solid show.
It definitely was. And, as we continue on to our picks through the year, let's talk about feud of the year, right? For me, I thought the feud of the year was actually a tie. And Jon Moxley is involved with both of these, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's tied between, in my opinion, between Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley and Jericho.
Right.
What stood out with me, as far as Moxley and Kingston, was how personal it seemed like it got. They got history. They go back to CZW.
Yep.
And all the hardcore wrestling, the way they worked it was Kingston, they were playing off like they were good friends. And then he got mad when Moxley went off to the world of sports entertainment and went to WWE. Right. And Kingston was still grinding on the independents and CZW as a hardcore wrestler. And ultimately that rivalry culminated at Full Gear in that I Quit match.
Yeah. Well, see, the biggest thing I liked about that rivalry was Kingston's promos.
Yeah, they were.
To me, that was. I really didn't care for the match a whole lot. It was, to me, just another hardcore match to me. But the build-up what was great in my opinion.
Yeah,
Kingston's promos and all that.
I said the promos got extremely like almost personal,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's when we kind of started seeing Kingston aligning himself with Penta El Sierra Mero and Ray Phoenix.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then we saw before that there was a rivalry between Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho, and Moxley won the AEW title. They were continuing on the build up from what they had in WWE.
Yeah.
As they made a few references to Chris Jericho's jacket that Moxley destroyed.
And that was what, going into Revolution?
I think so, yeah. I think that's what it was. Yeah, Moxley still never paid him that $5,000. But, it was still, that was a good match. And like I said, I was just happy that Moxley won the world title finally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so those are my picks for the feud of the year. I'm saying you also had you couldn't choose between just one as well. You also had a tie.
Yeah, actually I did. I had a tie here, and it was for two completely different reasons for these two picks. In my first pick, it was Pat McAfee and Adam Cole, and then a similar reason to why you picked Mox and Kingston was because of McAfee's promos were amazing.
Yeah,
and McAfee's heel work in general was amazing. It's pretty crazy that the best heel in wrestling for the entire year is not even a wrestler.
Right. Yeah, and like some of the stuff he was doing, I was just extremely impressed with that a non-wrestler comes in and just does all these things that a normal wrestler should be able to do.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that helps is he is a legitimate athlete.
Yeah.
He is. And he also was trained by Rip Rogers, legendary wrestling trainer. So he had a good base. He went about it the right way. So
when the rivalry first started, with Adam Cole being a guest on the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah.
At first it looked kind of legit. Like you really
they played it up. They really made it. Yeah.
They made it look legit. Then Triple H invited Pat McAfee to NXT. That week?
Yeah,
2 weeks later.
Yeah.
We saw Pat McAfee pretty much punt kick Adam Cole in the head and almost got into a little brawl of Triple H and Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. And Adam Cole was one of the best people they could have picked to give McAfee to. Adam Cole can be a heel. He can be a baby face. He can, he's an all-around great, wrestler. So I can't really think of too many other people that they could have given McAfee and made it work,
Yeah, Adam Cole, he's one of those people that can pretty much fit into whatever role he's needed in.
Mm-hmm. And then, so my other pick for this was Tetsuya Naito and Evil in New Japan. And the reason I'd picked that is because this feud was real personal, and it has some years on it. Because these two guys are the founding members of LIJ in New Japan. It started with these two. And so, Naito and Evil had always treated each other as brothers. And then back when New Japan came back from the lockdown and quarantine and all that, they did the New Japan Cup. And that's where Evil betrayed Naito and LIJ and joined Bullet Club and became one of their leaders and started, this feud for the rest of the year. So, that had some... where I liked the McAfee and Adam Cole feud because of the work they were doing and just how believable it was. I liked the Naito and Evil feud just as much because of the backstory and how deep it went between the two guys. These two guys had been like brothers for the last 5 or 6 years, and then, he just Evil throws it all the way to join another group.
Well, I don't really get to watch much New Japan, so I don't get to keep up with it that much.
Yeah, that was just a nice, betrayal, angle.
Well, let's talk about match of the year, right? I said before, there's a lot of good matches that came up from this year, and WWE did a great job in response to the whole COVID situation with the Thunderdome and whatnot. And me personally, I thought one of the better matches what I consider the best match of the year came out of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view.
Right.
And that was between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso for the Universal title.
Mm-hmm.
The story going into that match, that was probably like the first, some of the first promos, some of the first matches Roman Reigns had done as a heel.
Yeah.
And he knocked it out the park and did an amazing job as the heel in that rivalry.
Yeah. Well, and him with Paul Heyman is perfect.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. Roman with Paul Heyman, that was the best move they could have made.
Yeah, it definitely was. We know Heyman's got his hand in this and helped developing it and whatnot. And
definitely. This story has Heyman all over it.
Yeah. And the storytelling and that Hell in a Cell match, about how they were family and Uso just wouldn't quit.
They told a good story, going back to when they were kids and all that, and just the whole family aspect of it. It was good. That was definitely a good match.
Uso still wouldn't acknowledge Reigns as a tribal chief in that match, and his brother Jimmy Uso actually had to come out and try to save him. And Jey Uso would not quit until Roman Reigns was trying to choke out Jimmy Uso. He's like, I'm not going to let him go until you quit. So Jey Uso, he finally quit after that, and Reigns walked back up the ramp afterwards to pose with a picture and whatnot with the Wild Samoans.
Yep. But
storytelling in that match was still it was great.
Oh yeah, no, and then like you said, bringing in the family and everything else, it all came together. I thought it all came together really good.
And what was your pick of the year for the match?
So my pick for match of the year, and I had a few that I rolled over in my head. One was the Finn Balor and Kyle O'Reilly NXT title match, because that was just insane. And then the NXT UK match between Walter and Dragunov was even more insane, because those two were trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
But my pick was Go Shiozaki versus Katsuhiko Nakajima from the Pro Wrestling Noah 20th anniversary show for the GHC Heavyweight Championship, because that as well had a bit of a backstory to it also, because both guys were tag team partners. And back in the summertime, Nakajima betrayed Shiozaki and joined the heel faction Kongo in Noah. And then Nakajima ended up winning Noah's annual tournament to earn a title shot, at Shiozaki, who he had already betrayed. So that whole played into the whole thing. And I know I showed you some of that match, and it was, it was a long match. It ended up being like 40 minutes, but everything they did in it had a purpose. It all came together nicely. There wasn't like one part that just stuck out like a sore thumb. You know what I'm saying? Everything they did, they shifted nicely into each segment of the match. And that match took place in parts. It was almost like a movie. You have act 1, act 2. You know what I'm saying?
Jeez, yeah.
So I just thought they put that together really well.
Yeah, then we got what we thought was the worst match of the year as well. For me, it was just the worst match I had for this year was anything that involved Nia Jax or Lana. Like, both of those are some of the most talentless women on the WWE roster. Like, their matches were just horrible.
At least Lana doesn't end people's careers or, send them to the hospital. So
no, she just gets put through tables.
Yeah. She just gets beat up. Nia Jax is the one that beats everybody else up for real.
Right. It's just like any match involving them two is just it's bad.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that one. It's a little rough.
Yeah. So, what was your pick for the worst match of the year?
Well, my pick for worst match was the Firefly Inferno match, because I want somebody to answer this question for me legitimately How do you continue a story where you have murdered one of the people in it?
I don't think there's anywhere else you can go from that.
Okay, at this point, Bray Wyatt can no longer come back to the WWE because they fucking killed his ass on live TV.
Cremated.
if he comes back, are we supposed to just forget that he was set the fuck on fire on pay-per-view?
Maybe he'll come back as a like Kane type character.
Okay, but here's the thing: the Fiend was already the comeback of the comeback. So how do you go past?
I'm sure they'll work out something. Bruce Pritchard and all his wrestling genius,
and it'll be fucking stupid. And you know what? I've got their next idea already for them. You want to hear it?
Sure. What's that?
I came up with this the other day after I watched this match. So the next angle they should do, and this will just be the grand finale to end it all, is we should just give Retribution automatic weapons, let them take out the entire roster in just the one giant grand finale. They're already basically a terrorist group. Let's just finish the job.
Question though. Is this before Ricochet joins Retribution or after?
Well, I guess it should be after, so his name can play into the giant, shootout.
That match it wasn't horrible, but like the way it ended is just like a kind of. So when the way it happens, like I guess Randy Orton won, since he just got cremated in the middle of the ring. No, they never really announced anything, Yeah,
it just kind of happened, but then no, I just said the setup of the match when Randy Orton came out in the long pants and the jacket. I already knew then, okay, something stupid's gonna happen,
right? And then we got promotion of the year. What was? I'm gonna let you start that one out. What do you think the best promotion of this year was?
Me personally, I think it was Ring of Honor after the reboot. They took that time off to completely overhaul and redo everything about the show. And then when they came back, they did that pure tournament to that was their way of signifying, okay, we're coming back as something different. And we're going to start with this. And another thing I've liked about that is that they've kept those pure rules matches. As you saw, like on the recent TV episodes and on Final Battle, they're still using those match rules just for regular matches. So I like having that there, and everything about it just overall, I feel like they really embraced this whole lockdown thing the most and really came out the best.
Yeah, it was like from what I saw. I watched it a few years ago, and it was just something I really couldn't get into. I thought it was kind of goofy. But then, like I said, after they did the reboot and they restarted, did the Pure Rules tournament, I started watching it a little bit. And then I watched the last pay-per-view, Final Battle, and I was extremely impressed with the presentation and just the way they did the matches now, the stories going into it. I was extremely impressed, and I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, they definitely have, and you're right. A couple of years ago, they were goofy as all hell, and they really were. And they definitely have used this time, the time off to completely just sit back and say, okay, we need to change this.
Yeah, definitely. I picked for my promotion of the year. I picked AEW.
Okay.
Yeah, it was their first full year that they've been around, and I said they brought a lot of guys into the fold that I never heard of, and no matches. They had, like I said, the guys they brought into the fold are the guys I never heard of.
Right.
And a lot of them are very impressive in what they can do in the ring. If they can just get the ring psychology down a little bit better and stop doing all the big spots, easily be the best promotion there is in North America, in my opinion. Because they got a lot of young guys that can go, but I said they all want to go for the big spots instead of trying to tell a story in the ring.
Yeah. Well, and that leads into that problem that we mentioned before on the independent wrestling, that's all they want to do.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
that's where part of that comes from.
maybe this year they'll get it together, and next year they'll get it together, and we'll see where next year 2021 takes them.
Yeah, we'll see, because I didn't see anything really that I thought was great from them, but that's also just my taste in wrestling being different than yours.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and finally, come down to the big one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wrestler of the year.
Yes, sir.
All right, for me, I thought the best wrestler this year was Darby Allin.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, he's one of them guys not many people have heard of. He's had a slow build to becoming one of the pretty much like the face of the company.
In a way, yeah, he has become that. And I can see, definitely him being like one of the breakout people this year. Definitely, just that underdog, come from underneath, come from behind style. It definitely has worked for him.
He's got a unique gimmick, and his matches, I haven't seen a bad match from him at all.
Yeah. Well, and again, he's one of those few guys that can do all the dives and stuff, and it makes sense because, because of his size.
Yeah.
Like a Rey Mysterio, he uses his whole body as a weapon because he is smaller than all these people.
Yeah.
And I like that.
His ring psychology is actually one of the best I've seen in AEW.
The only thing I don't like is when he does that damn coffin drop on the apron and he misses half the time. That bugs me.
Kind of like some things that PCO does.
Oh yeah, trust me, it bugs me when he does it too. And PCO's 3 times his size, so it'd be even worse.
Right. But now.
But no, I can.
Darby Allin has won the TNT title from Cody Rhodes a few months ago, and they've been pushing him pretty good as TNT champion. And in 2 weeks, they got him defending it against Brian Cage. So that's going to be that's a big mismatch. First of all,
that should be interesting though. Cage used to do a lot of lucha. Cage used to wrestle a lot of small guys all the time. So he's used to being in those style of matches. So that should actually be pretty good.
Yeah, it's just like the size difference between the two, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. It's it's like a German Shepherd and a Chihuahua,
But I think it's interesting too. Talking about Darby Allin, what are they going to do with Sting? Because I believe like Sting's going to be involved with him in some way, shape, or form, and I think ultimately Sting is going to become sort of like a manager for Darby Allin.
Well, one of the rumors I saw, and it's something that Sting said himself, is it looks like they're going to try to get him to do some of these like movie matches. So I guess, him and Darby, I guess that could work in some way, a movie match between them. At least, that was the gist of what I saw was. But it also kind of looks, the way Sting's been talking, looks like he's going to be trying to be a mentor or something of that sort.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely going to be, I'm definitely going to be watching to see what 2021 has in store for Sting as well.
Yeah. But no doubt Darby Allin definitely a lot of success and definitely, moving his way up this year without a doubt.
Yeah. So who was your wrestler of the year?
Well, my pick was Drew McIntyre. The top reason being that he got Lesnar the fuck off TV.
We haven't seen Lesnar since then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you're eating boots to the face like that, but not only that, I joking aside, McIntyre's had a great year. His career resurgence, his career, he's completely turned his career around, and that's all culminated this year when he won the WWE Championship.
And it was definitely well deserved too.
Yeah. Because he was in the WWE when he was young and it didn't work out. And then, he went and grinded his way back to the top, through Impact, through Evolve and all the other, different promotions he went through. And then to come back, win the NXT title, and now he's won the WWE title. Yeah,
That's definitely a true story of working your way back up to the top.
he's definitely fought and clawed his way back to the top, and he earned it.
Yeah. Definitely had a phenomenal year, no pun intended there, after his match with AJ Styles.
Yeah, I mean, but it was. You can definitely describe his year as phenomenal. There's no joking aside.
Yeah. I mean, I really think we talked about all that. That wraps up this week's episode of Big Bang Wrestling.
So, you want to talk about some news we got coming up?
Don't forget, everybody, next week we will have TJP on the show as our guest. Me and Nick are still excited for that, and we're looking forward to sitting down and talking with the man himself.
Yes, sir. That should be a fun time just to sit down, ask some questions, have a conversation with with a guy that I think is one of the better ones out there right now.
Yeah, definitely, and he's also going to be the first guest on Big Bang Wrestling, so that's a big step right there.
So it's definitely a big week coming up.
Yeah, it's going to be a very big week coming up this week, especially after the holidays. And we'll have a fresh start for Big Bang Wrestling, starting out with our first guest, TJP.
Yep.
But all right, everybody, that's going to wrap up this week's episode. I'm Marcus.
And I'm Nick.
And we are out.